Hi, thanks all for coming. So first, a couple of quick questions that may seem to be orthogonal here. One is, how many of you had been following along on the road trip blog while I was gone? Whoa. And how many of you have taken the machine learning course here? That's pretty impressive. Okay, so there are going to be some aspects here that are familiar to everyone. Okay, first of all, hi, I'm Pablo. Thanks for coming. I also have in the audience, I'm going to embarrass Zach, a fellow Polie, Zach Lash, who is one of my best friends down there and a South Pole veteran as well. And I'm going to be picking on him as my plant in the audience when I ask questions. Excellent. Great. So this all, just the high-level background was this started about 2 years ago when I was sitting around with an old friend who I'd lost touch with and finding out what she'd been doing for the past decade. And it turned out she'd been working at the South Pole. And I said, wow, what was that like? And she looked up and said, magnificent desolation. And I said, how many people recognize that phrase? Okay, what's it from? No. Not from my blog, but.
Apollo missions?
What? Okay.
Apollo, right?
Uh-huh. It was Apollo missions. Buzz Aldrin. That was how he described the moon. Okay, I'm going to be a bad frisbee thrower here. Can you pass this back? What? Oh dear. That's a US Antarctic Program patch for the first correct question. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, that's how Buzz Aldrin described being on the moon. And I said, I know that quotation. And she said, yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted to work on the moon base. And they haven't built it yet, so I figured the South Pole is about the closest I can get. And I said, tell me more. So that was about 2 years ago, and I spent the next year sort of thinking about it and looking at the various Antarctic Program job postings and slowly building up brownie points so that my wife and kids would let me go away for that long, and made as many friends as I could, did as much research as I could, and after a surprising amount of luck, I landed a position with the program, and I spent the last roughly 3 months from the end of October till the beginning of February working at the South Pole doing tech support, being the guy who fixed your computer if you happen to be at the South Pole. So since I'm an engineer, I have outlines for everything, and this is going to be the rough outline of the talk. First, I want to straighten out and get people properly oriented of what Antarctica is and why the heck people are down there. Talk about the process of getting to the pole. For me, the real meat of it is going to be here, just like work, life, play, what it's like being at the pole, and then questions. I've got a Dory page set up, and we've also got microphones, so don't be shy. So, okay, actually, one important disclaimer here. Almost all of the pictures we've got here are either things that were fortunately up on my blog or that I have stolen from friends who have posted things or I grabbed off of the web because we lost all of our pictures in the Christchurch earthquake on the way back. Yeah, I just can't stay away from adventure. Okay, so let's start with basic Antarctica orientation. Okay, how many people recognize this? This is the Arctic. It's at the top of the planet. It's got about 15 feet of sea ice. There's no land under there. It's just floating sea ice. And there are polar bears up there, no penguins. Okay, that's up at the top. Okay? The other end is Antarctica. Okay, Antarctica is actually a continent. It's a real honking big continent. Instead of 15 feet of ice or so, it has roughly 9,000 feet of ice. No polar bears, but around the coast, there is sea life like penguins, for example. Okay, let's get this straight. Arctic top, Antarctic south. Okay. Now, another popular misconception is Antarctica is really big. So, we have a familiar continent here, well, familiar country at least here. Antarctica is 1.5 times the size of the United States. It's big. It's got 90% of the world's ice, 9,000 feet stacks up a lot of volume, and 70% of the world's fresh water. Worth keeping in mind. It's got a lot of other superlatives. Okay, highest, driest, windiest, coldest, and emptiest continent on Earth. Highest. Average elevation, surface elevation in Antarctica is 9,000 feet. It's got a lot of mountains. You don't see most of the mountains because most of the mountains are buried below the ice sheet. Still, the tallest mountains in Antarctica are over 16,000 feet high. The South Pole itself is at 9,500 feet. Because of atmospheric effects, it actually, the physiological elevation is 10,500 feet. In any case, so it's high. It's dry. Antarctica is a desert. In the South Pole, we get less than 2 inches of precipitation annually. We get a lot of stuff blown in from other places, but it's a desert. It's dry. It's the windiest. It regularly breaks 200 miles an hour some places on the continent. It's the coldest. This is my friend Marco, who's actually from Palo Alto. He's a winter over. This is him geared up to go on his morning run. This is him after about half an hour coming out of his morning run. He sent me this photo last week when it dipped down to minus 89. Now let's put some real numbers on this just to get a feel for cold, okay? Late October when I headed down, Palo Alto was a chilly 68 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? From Palo Alto, flew to McMurdo. McMurdo Station is a big station on the coast. It's basically the summer limits of where the sea ice melts, where ships can actually get. This is as far as you can get, and it's the big base. At McMurdo, in late October, it was 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is springtime, okay? 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so then we went from McMurdo to the South Pole. Now, this is a difference of 58 degrees. This is not a small amount, okay? So from McMurdo in Antarctica, I want to emphasize that, we went to the South Pole, where it was minus 48 degrees, okay? Now, 58 degree difference here, and a 58 degree difference here. So the same difference between Palo Alto and the edge of Antarctica and edge to the center. Now, if you do this iteration one more time, carbon dioxide comes out of the atmosphere as a solid of its own accord, okay? But it turns out that you can beat the pants off of that, because at the pole in the winter, it's gotten down to minus 117. I've talked with people who've overwintered in conditions like this, and they say they were actually looking for the carbon dioxide, but they couldn't actually tell it from the rest of the stuff that was coming out of the air. But in terms of low temperatures, the Russians think that we Americans at the pole are wimps, because they've got Vostok Base, which has recorded temperatures even colder than that. So emphasize, I just want to kind of let it set in. Is it cold? Yeah, it's cold. Okay, also it's the emptiest. Around the coast, around the coast there is marine life, but for marine life you actually need access to water, which you only have around the perimeter. And remember, this thing is 1.5 times the size of the United States. Okay, so there are no indigenous peoples who have ever lived in Antarctica, unlike any other continent. And in the center of the continent, there's nothing that lives there. Nothing lives there that wasn't brought in on a C-130. Bacteria, yeah, that was bacteria came in on a C-130. Okay, and this is a bit of a pet peeve, because whenever I told people I was going to the South Pole, they said, "Oh, take a picture of a penguin for me." Okay, no penguins at the South Pole. They're around the coast, but remember, this is a big continent. This would be akin to somebody's telling you that they were coming to the United States. Where are you going? I'm going to North Dakota. Awesome. There's this great whale watching tour. There are as many penguins at the South Pole as there are whales in North Dakota. And it's about the same distance. Okay. So that's the overview of Antarctica. South Pole obviously isn't the only base. There are a lot of bases all over the place. All of the bases from all of the countries are governed by the International Antarctic Treaty, which basically says there's no commercial exploitation, no military activity. You can only have scientific and environmental studies there. You can't leave any trash there. Just pick up after yourselves. All of the US bases are administered by the US Antarctic Program under the NSF. There are 3 bases. There's McMurdo, which I've already mentioned. That's down on the coast. That's the big city. There are about, in peak of the summer, there may be 1,500 people there. People live in dorms and they work in separate buildings, etc. Out on the Palmer Peninsula, there's Palmer Station, which is a very small base. This tops out at about 40 people in the summer. They mostly do biology. Yeah, quick question.
Last map said east and west.
East and west, yeah.
That doesn't work.
Actually, let me take just a moment to, that's a good question. Stand by. Excellent question. Because normal coordinates don't work, we use what's called grid coordinates, and the meridians are our coordinates. So the prime meridian, 0 degrees, is north. 90 degrees east latitude, east longitude is east. 90 degrees west longitude is west. So this is pointing towards Greenwich. This is pointing towards the international date line. Excellent question. Yes?
Throughout Antarctica or only near the South Pole?
Throughout Antarctica. Okay, so there's Palmer Station. They do a lot of the marine biology, and that's about 40 people. And then there is my home of homes, South Pole. Okay, this is what it looks like. South Pole has about 200 to 250 people in the middle of summer, going down to about 40 people overwintering. This is a sort of a view from the distance of the entire complex. There's the main station here. There's the big physics stuff over here, the skiway. It's not a runway, it's a skiway because the planes that land there have to use skis. And so the pole, what's special about the pole? Okay, it's defined as the rotational axis of the Earth. Because of that, so you've got the Earth turning like this. The sun doesn't go up and down like it does in normal latitudes. It basically just goes around and around and around every day. And as the Earth moves through its orbit, eventually the Earth moves to the point where the sun is behind the body of the Earth. And so thus we have one day and one night. And each of them last exactly 6 months. What's wrong with this picture? Being the South Pole at all, right? It's not, there is something else wrong with this picture. Good. So this isn't actually the South Pole. That's the South Pole. This other one, this is the ceremonial South Pole that sort of stays put. But the geographic South Pole it is computed each year, and a new pole marker is put in place. Right now they're about 70, 80 yards apart, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I said one day, which we sometimes call summer, and one night, which we often call winter. Summer is when most of the activity happens. Sunrise happens around September 22nd to 23rd. And it's actually not around. It actually takes 2 days because it gets lighter on the horizon. It gets a little lighter, a little lighter, a little lighter, and eventually the sun breaks the horizon. Late October, it's finally warm enough to get the flights in. Temperature peaks in late December. We have total of around 200, 250 people, depending on what's going on. January starts getting cold quick. By mid-January, the temperature is dropping 2 degrees per day. By mid-February, it's so cold that the airplanes can't land and get off again. They like that getting off part, so they have to get the last of the summer population out. And the winter overpopulation, as I said, is about 40. Sunset is from March 21st to March 22nd. I just got a picture, which I wasn't clever enough to load up here from one of my friends there of showing sunset, a few pictures of sunset as it moves around the horizon. Okay, so that's rough orientation, South Pole, big, cold, harsh. Why are we there? There's one important word, science. Yes, we are there to support science. And it's important, the nice thing is that at the South Pole, science is a mass noun. I remember sitting there one of my early days where there's some banging upstairs at my desk, and I looked over and said, I thought we were done with construction here, and Ben leaned over and said, yeah, somebody decided they needed to nail some more science to the roof. So why do you come to the South Pole to do science? Well, there's some special things about it. First of all, it's remote. So it's great for stuff like atmospheric studies, where you don't have humans polluting things. It's quiet seismologically. There's very little radio frequency and light. In the night, there's no light interference, and it's rarefied. You're 2 miles up, thin, very dry atmosphere, and at night, the atmosphere is perfectly stable, perfectly smooth. You want to shine, you want to get good pictures of space. You can't do it you can't get any closer to space than here in the winter. Okay, so because of that, as you might imagine, there's a lot of atmospheric studies. This plot, by the way, I don't know if you can read it, should scare you. These are the carbon dioxide measurements at the South Pole going from 1955 to present day. Seismology. So this is there's a seismic vault mentioned at the South Pole. Lots of physics. Physics is the single largest scientific endeavor at Pole. Pretty picture. Oh gosh, can you guys actually see that? No, that's just way too dark. It looks nice on my screen. That's the South Pole telescope at night with Aurora Borealis and great stars over it. Oops. Thank you, that was gratifying. Okay. I want to just talk about one physics experiment in slightly greater detail because it was the biggest experiment that was being worked on while I was there, and because it's so freaking cool. Okay, neutrinos go through matter like it wasn't there, because neutrinos just don't notice these things. In order to get a neutrino to interact with something, you have to put it through a whole bunch of matter. And then to detect that it's actually hit something, you have to be able to see through that matter. So what you really want is this large, dense, clear volume of something with no other photons around. Yes, ice. So what these guys have done is they've taken basically a square mile of surface area and drilled 88 holes a mile and a half down and embedded these digital optical modules called DOMs into the holes, and they have embedded a cubic mile of ice with sensors and computers so that when a neutrino goes through and happens to interact with a water molecule, the light can be detected from all of the DOMs, path compute, and they say, yo, we have a neutrino. It's a scary, huge experiment. I mean, think about a cubic mile is a lot of space. In any case, so that's science at the pole. That's why we're there. So I decided I wanted to go. Yes, Eric? Yes, they have been getting neutrinos. If you go to, I think it's icecube.wisc.edu, University of Wisconsin is the US partner there. They actually, I think, have live data they'll show you. We got another one. So getting to the pole. Step number one, get a job at the South Pole. I'll talk a little bit more about this during the question period because there's not a really easy way of describing the process. There are two main groups of people at the pole. There's the support staff, who keep science going. They're roughly 150, 250 in the summer, 30, 40 in the winter. And then there's the science staff, or as the support staff refer to them, the beakers. And they tend to rotate through. Sometimes some only come down for a week to do their experiments. Some are there for the entire season. Some, like Robert Schwartz, are there, as far as I can tell, haven't left for the past decade. So that's step one, get a job at the pole. Step two is actually get yourself to the pole. To get to the pole, it starts out in the US, you fly down to Christchurch. And there you stop at the Antarctic Program Center where they give you the ECW gear, the extreme cold weather gear. As people are fond of saying, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. This stuff, you put it on, you go outside, you don't notice the weather, at least for a little while. Zach is giving me a grin. He's spent more time out in the weather than I have. Okay, you've got your gear. Once you've got your gear, next day or so, if the weather holds, you get on a C-17, which my friend Beth calls the magic tube. Has no windows. You get in it, you sit down, and a few 8 hours later, you get off, and you're somewhere else. You're on the Ross Ice Shelf outside of McMurdo, and you are in Antarctica, and you're going, wow. Okay, but the adventure has only started, because the next day, if the weather holds, you get on a C-130, also known as C-130 Hercules, just referred to as a Herc, that flies you from McMurdo, the 1,000 miles inland, to the pole. Some interesting things about the Herc. Skis, JATO rockets. They don't usually use JATO going McMurdo to the pole just because they don't need to. That's more for the field camps. Okay, so you climb into the Herc, you're wandering around, you're bored, you make new friends, you look out the window, there is a window there. And then you suffer through a landing unlike anything you've felt before. Imagine, unless you used to fly US Air back in the 70s. But you have 130,000 pounds of military aircraft with skis, no shock absorbers, hitting 2 miles of ice, boom. And just the sound and the feel of it is something completely unreal. And then it gets a little scarier because then the engines stop and they say, okay, time to get out. And you climb out, and this is like, okay, it's 2 miles up on an ice sheet as large as the United States. It's minus 45, not counting the substantial wind chill. And you discover you can't really breathe. When you blink, your eyes freeze shut. That was a new one for me. And you realize you've never been happier in your life. You are at the South Pole of the world. You go, wow. Funny thing is you get used to it pretty quickly. I'm going to try to see if I can shift over here to, this is a video that I shot with a friend of mine just a couple of weeks after getting there. Come on, give me this back. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, temperate friends. We're at the South Pole. You'll notice I'm wearing a flannel shirt. I'm Pablo. It is Sunday morning. It's about minus 42, and we're going to do an experiment here. We've been asked all sorts of things about what happens when water is exposed to the atmosphere. We've heard if you toss a cup of water up in the air, it'll freeze. We've heard if you toss a hot cup of water up in the air, it'll freeze. We've been asked what happens if you pee off the second floor balcony, will it freeze? We're going to try to do some of those experiments. So here we have a hot mug of water. Let's come out here to the edge. It's worth listening to the sound when I. It's remarkably calm air. And so it's nice and steaming hot. Let's get the camera right off to the edge so we can watch what happens. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and... Wow. That was neat. Okay. It makes this sound and then it's gone. You can have a lot of fun. Okay. In any case, so you've now gotten to the pole, and you've sort of gotten used to it. Now we're going to sort of dive into the main part, which is sort of work and life at the pole. Life at the South Pole Station. This is your world, effectively. This is the station. There are the outbuildings, etc. And the station itself is a work of modern engineering. It's got all of the comforts of home. So we've got a gym. There's the greenhouse. There's the galley, hallways. You wear. This is basically what I wore, walking around. Except instead of wearing these, because I had to tie these up, I'd wear my fuzzy slippers. And here's the dorm rooms. The dorm rooms are nice and shiny and modern. They're small. They're very small, but they're quiet and comfortable. And they house about 100 people. Now, what's wrong with what I've just told you? Yes. Okay. Did I already give you one of these? There you go. Okay. Yes. The thing is that not everyone lives in the station. The low folks on the totem pole, the people who are supporting science, live out at what is euphemistically called summer camp. Summer camp because it's only habitable in the summer, and it has all of the comforts of summer camp. Summer camp is actually a series of 14 1950s era Korean War surplus army tents. They're called Jamesways. They're insulated. Gosh, that's really dark. Yeah. Well, in any case, this is what they look like from the outside. This is what it looks like from the inside. You've got sort of plywood separators on either side, an unheated floor. Something that is over here, the thing that separates you from the hallway is a glorified military bed sheet. And you have nominally privacy. It's about 8 by 8. You have nominally privacy, but you hear every sound that everyone in the dorm does. You wait a little while, and at 11, you're going to have to sit up and yell, "Bruce, you're snoring!" And you know that Cornell's going to come in, he's going to shut the door, he's going to turn around, and he's going to whack the thing on the back of his backpack against the frame, and everything's going to go tung, and he's going to say, "Sorry." And he's going to do that tomorrow night, too. So in any case, so that's what life looks like for us low folks on the totem pole. So let's go a little bit into a day in my life. So I wake up, and I was one of the lucky ones, because these Jamesways have been around for so long. The people who have lived in them, especially if they are carpenters, we have a lot of carpenters down there, have made their own little improvements. So instead of having a bed sheet, I had a plywood door. I was the envy of my Jamesway for having a door. I also had a window. which was pretty awesome, except that the sun never goes down. And so every night, I had to sort of take my jury-rigged cover and cover it up so I'd have some dark and then take it off in the morning. So this is my Jamesway. That's the hallway at night. So I stumble, I throw on Big Red, and I throw on my Carhartts and my big bunny boots, and I stumble out in the darkness to, this is my front door, and everyone else's front door, and I stumble the roughly 50 yards across the snow to get to the bathrooms. The joys of summer camp. And where I sort of brush my teeth and shave maybe. And I look at my watch, and if it's Wednesday or if it's Saturday, then I say it's a shower day. We're allowed, because all of the water there has to be melted from ice. And all of the ice has to be melted with jet fuel, and all of the jet fuel has to be flown in. Hot water is a scarce commodity, so we're allowed 2 showers a week. 2 minutes of water per shower. You get used to it. Okay. Yes?
Did you make it all the way to the bathroom at night?
Did I make it all the way to the bathroom at night? This is where the unheated floor is a bonus. We have.
It wouldn't make anything yellow. It would just disappear. It would vaporize.
We're not going to repeat that one, but it's a good point. Well, most people who live in Jamesways have what are non-euphemistically called pee buckets. You have your little jar of whatever, and instead of going outside at night, and it helps that the floor freezes, because that the floor is unheated, because you put that under your bed on the floor, and it freezes solid. Yeah. Okay. Can we get the collective? Ew. Thank you. That's what I felt like also. In any case, so finally it's time to go into work. And I go walk across the roughly quarter mile of snow to get to the station. Big, imposing station with steam coming off of it. Walk up the back door. This is the back door to the station is called Destination Zulu. The front door is Destination Alpha. This is DZ versus DA. And in the door, that's a industrial freezer door. Inside Destination Zulu, I take my gear off. I shuck off my bunny boots and my Big Red, put on my fuzzy slippers, and go upstairs to breakfast. Food is one of the great joys at Pole. It's not quite as good as Google, but it is awesome food. The galley staff is there because they want to be at the South Pole, and they love their pulleys, and they want to work their butts off. They really go out of the way. Let's see, so what do we have here? Oh yes, this was the real imitation crab bakes, and it's labeled with artery clogging sauce. And over on the left, it was labeled a cheesy meat eater's pizza of doom. This is Christina. When she took over the breakfast things, we got these amazing, yeah, Zach's nodding his head, yeah. You remember the raspberry mascarpone stuffed French toast? Yes, yeah. You eat well at the Pole. Yeah, Kat. Do you need to eat more than usual? You get to eat more than usual. It's great. Four hot meals a day. Actually, there are the 3 normal meals, and then there's what's called mid-rats, midnight rations for the folks on swing shift. And because the mid-rats folks are only cooking for about 40 people instead of 200 people, mid-rats is really nice. If you're not working swing shift, or you actually have to get permission to attend mid-rats. And so I remember the time, the last week, I went over to a split sleep schedule and was going to mid-rats. I remember it was the Montego Bay shrimp with some sort of pilaf and a molten chocolate hot cake. I'm sorry, I'm getting hungry here. In any case, they feed you really well. So after breakfast, I actually have to go to work. So what do the people in winter eat? People in winter eat stuff as good as mid-rats. Actually, I've been told, Ben was telling me that it's even better than mid-rats in winter. Yeah. He's just taunting me.
They can't fly it in frequently, right?
Right, no, you're right. They can't fly anything in the winter. So basically, the summer is spent stocking up on stuff that's not perishable, freezing it out in the berms to be retrieved, and also getting the greenhouse started so that they have fresh vegetables to support 40 people over the winter. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so it's 7:30 in the morning, and I have to show up at my desk. My desk is there. There's Ben. Yes, Eric. Good. What do I mean by 7:30? All time is an illusion. Starting time doubly so. No, excellent question. What we do is we use New Zealand daylight time. I don't know why. It's roughly 21 hours ahead of time here, or 3 hours past the next day. So right now it is 4:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday at South Pole. No? Other direction? You're right. It's late morning. Yes, Devin has practiced for 4 months. Yeah, Mike.
You actually adjust your clocks forward and back for daylight saving
No.
time?
No, it's all New Zealand daylight, NZDT. It just makes it so that we have to get up early to meet with the folks in headquarters in Denver. I think that's why they do that. Yeah, those poor souls have to get up at 5:30 to talk with us. Hand me some more coffee cake. So in any case, this is what my desk looks like. I sit down and I start fielding problems. Usually there's mail from overnight of people who are having problems with their email, people whose computers aren't working, people who've forgotten to plug the printer in, et cetera. Desperate, urgent needs from Denver to let them know something irrelevant, et cetera. And I do this from 7:30 until about noon, whenever it is that we decide that it's lunchtime, and we go off and get lunch. But actually, one of the big problems is the internet down? Yes, the internet's down. I don't know if you can read this. This is one of the signs that I hung on my desk. Is yes, the internet is down. Yes, we're working on it. No, we don't know when it's going to be fixed. Would you like to hear a knock-knock joke in the meantime? Who? Wait, no. It's a knock-knock. Who's there? Not the internet. And the problem is that, so we're at the pole, and there are all of these wonderful geostationary and geosynchronous satellites that are supposed to cover. Yeah. And so you do the geometry, and they would have to go through the Earth to get to the pole. So it's only the satellites that have some eccentricity or it's not eccentricity. What is it called when you're at an angle? Some inclination. Thank you. I'm going to run out of these things. Whew, I'm getting better. Have some inclination that actually come up over our horizon for any amount of time. And because we're a National Science Foundation project, we are at the bottom of the pecking order for any sort of bandwidth. So we only get the cheap, slow satellites when they happen to come up and when nobody else wants to use them. Okay. I don't spend all of my life behind the desk. Sometimes I get to go out and fix other people's things, like plug in a printer at the next door over at the med lab, or go over to comms where Tina has some sort of problem, and then I'm always scared to go over to comms because Tina says, I can't get this thing to work. And the reason why I'm scared is because Tina will have already tried everything I could think of. I am irrelevant with comms because Tina can do her job and mine better than me. But sometimes I actually get to leave the building and go down into the tunnels underneath where the power plant is, because Rick, our power plant guy, is great at breaking computers. I think he went through 3 different machines. Or else off into the logistics arch, this is where our materials that are brought in from the berms, they're brought in here to thaw out to minus 55 until we need them upstairs. Walking through the arch always made me feel like I was in the last scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It never went away. So this is what I do. 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. One of the things that really threw me was you don't get, it's not obvious the impact of having discretionary vacation days. Like, I'm not feeling well today, or, I'm kind of burnt out. I want to go out and do something for that. I'm going to take a vacation day. You don't get to do that at the pole. There are no you get Sunday off, but the kind of I'm going to take a day off. No, because you're the guy and there aren't any spares. And that sort of gets to you. But I am not one to complain, because I am what folks who work outdoors in the real weather, what folks like Zach refer to as an indoor house pet. I show up at the galley for lunch in my fuzzy slippers with my mug, and I sit down next to these folks. Like Eric would come in, and his Carhartts would still be smoldering from where he had set himself on fire. it was just, I have nothing to complain about. So either people do hard, crazy, real jobs that are basically, these are people who are really working as opposed to me. Let me just back up a little bit and talk about what people do. Yeah. What sort of people you have there? So we're a very homogeneous crowd here. We're Silicon Valley, kind of. Well, yeah, we are. At the pole, you need every sort of skilled labor and unskilled labor that you would need to run a town. Actually, to build a town, 2,000 miles from anywhere else at minus 57 degrees. So because of this, you end up working very closely with people who you ordinarily wouldn't encounter in your life. And you end up depending on each other. And so you end up having at the galley, you've got Karlstrom, the principal investigator, Harvard professor of this $100 million project, sitting, exchanging stories of how his day was with folks who never made it through high school. You've got left-wing, liberal, hippie freaks from California buddying up and talking about airplanes with right-wing, redneck, conservative folks, and they're your friends because they're the folks you live with and they're the folks you work with. Let's see. So here are just some of the. As I said, I don't have all of my pictures of the people who I hung out with. These are things I've managed to grab. So this is Bryce. He's one of the cargo guys I worked with. Iraq combat vet. Jared. Jared is another cargo guy. Forest firefighter, smoke jumper, Montana smoke jumper, and yoga instructor. Alyssa, itinerant mini Minnesotan, drives the largest tractor ever made for her day job, self-proclaimed folk dork, banjo aficionado. Ricky Gates, fastest man in Antarctica, dishwasher. He also holds a number of world records, such as the speed running time up the top of Pikes Peak and things like that. Ben, oh God, you can't. No, this is. Well, you can see his electronic shirt. Ben was our sysadmin. He was the one who fixed things when no one else could. Daniel, senior PC tech, also professional musician in his spare time. Ben and Daniel were the guys that I worked most closely with. Megan is a South Pole sort of lifer. She's been spending last decade or so working at the pole as much as she can. Megan is not quite human. I mean, she's been coming down to the pole for a really long time. I mean, this is probably spring. Yeah, so it's probably only minus 20 or so. Megan's great. We'll be sitting around talking about stuff, and she'll say, "Well, love to keep talking with you folks, but I think I'm going to go downstairs and play tractors for a while." This is not the biggest thing she drives. This is only a D7. Haley, I love this picture. This is a picture by Ricky. Ricky and Haley are all both incredible photographers. Haley was our grub lugger. She was the one who was responsible for getting the food that was down in the logistics arch up to us in a form that the kitchen staff could actually turn into food. We love Haley. Kayak instructor, no actual home, owns a car, I believe, but that's has no actual residence. Just awesome person. What else do we have? Oh, the GAs. A lot of people come down to pole as general assistants, which basically means they get to shovel snow and shovel snow and shovel snow. So we have Joel and Marie, and I think that's Max up there. Occasionally they get to do interesting things like drill holes, put dynamite in it, and blow them up. Yes, big shovel. Captain Don. Captain Don is our fire chief. Also, on certain occasions, Captain Christmas. This will become more explainable in just a minute. This is actually one of my favorite. It's an example of the people you end up working side by side with. So we have Lutri, who is a very traditional grandmother from Albuquerque, and Rachel, has a master's degree in international policy, used to work for the UN doing conflict analysis in Somalia. They both decided they wanted to come to the South Pole, and they spent the summer washing dishes so they could do it. And they were just happy. They were very pleased with these choices. In any case, well, then there's this guy. That's me, being a wimp. I'm all bundled up, and this is just logistics search. But in any case, so as I said, you encounter a lot of folks who you wouldn't normally encounter, and one of the nice things is you actually really grow from it. You spend a lot of time realizing the things you have in common, understanding their lifestyle and appreciating, why do they live that way? Okay, yeah, I think you're crazy, but I can understand how a rational person might have that as opinions. And also, in sort of, because you're under a microscope as much as they are, when Dan and I are sitting there looking across each other at after a recent conversation about politics, he's going, well, I guess he's a nice guy, even though he's a loony. It gives you an opportunity to think more about who you are and why you've made the decisions that you've made. And it's a wonderful, huge growing experience. And all of these people, no matter how different they are from you, well, with one or two exceptions, become your friends. And because you're, so this is the last part here. These are the people that we're going to, as I said, you live with these people, you work with these people, you play with these people. There isn't really a work-life balance because these people are your life while you're down there. And you just, when anything needs to be done, if it's your job, you do it. If it's not your job, you probably still do it. So, once or every week or two, Tina would get on the, say, good morning, Pole. It's sort of like Robin Williams, but without people shooting at you. Good morning, Pole. We have freshies at DZ. We need people to bring in freshies at DZ. And the front loaders would bring in these pallets full of fresh vegetables that had been flown in on a C-130, and everyone would throw on their stuff and line up down the stairs and just do basically a bucket brigade coming up. Everyone from GAs who are using this as an excuse to, I can put the shovel down. I don't have to. I can to folks like John Rand, who's been coming down to Pole for he actually. Probably 40 years. He helped to design the new station. He is so far above the hierarchy. He's like royalty. The dish pit. They always need help. Washing dishes. So we've got here. Let's see. One of the plumbers, one of the firefighters, our meteorologist, and the head of the South Pole Telescope project. Just rubber gloves on, all pulling in together. The greenhouse. So that's kind of working. There's also a lot of playing together. Who else are you going to play with? South Pole Ski Club. Yes, you can ski at the South Pole. It's not very good skiing. Marco again. Marco brought a bike down. The bike turned out to be amazingly popular. We all wanted to borrow the bike. Lots of music. I'm going to go into that a little later. There's a nice gym, swing dance classes, basketball, all sorts of stuff happening. Let's see if this one will work.
Ready.
So that's sledding at the South Pole. Quick, what time of day is it? Oh, good. Very good. I'm going to pause this, though. So Zach, you should be able to tell. Look at the shadows. No, shadows are coming straight that way. That's north. This is a little bit after midnight. This is one of the things that kind of throws you as you realize that all of those things that you want to do after work before it gets dark, not so much of an issue. Yeah, yeah. Kat. Oh, awesome question. Why is the station built up on? Okay, you guys duck. My range isn't that good. Well, let me answer that after I've gone through some more slides. But that's a really important, interesting question. Carl?
So nice videos. Did you have to get some kind of special rugged, cold-resistant camera?
Did I have to get a special camera? No. I just sort of kept the camera inside Big Red and popped it out. When I was doing the panoramas that I tried shooting for Street View, we took a Nikon D90 put a thermal sock around it and stuffed it full of chemical hand warmers. So they're also quiet indoor activities. We've got a great reading rooms, a pool table, arts and crafts room, good places where people can kind of hide out and mellow out. In terms of mellowing out, not everyone uses their recreation time for recreation. A lot of people who've come down to the pole, let's say as dishwashers or janitors, actually have aspirations of kind of moving into other jobs. And so what people often do is when they come off their normal shift at 5:30, they go volunteer on somebody else's swing shift. So a GA who's tired, who likes pole but doesn't want to keep shoveling, will volunteer down at the machine shop to maybe kind of develop some skills, build the personal relationships so that next year they can get hired as a machine operator or as a carpenter, and you basically build skills this way. I wasn't particularly looking for a new line of work, but because I was an indoor house pet and I'm not really I got restless. I started volunteering after work with the swing shift cargo team, which was huge amounts of fun, and I learned what it really meant to be cold. So I got to learn how to marshal and direct the 130s into land. Help the fuelers, help build pallets. I got to learn how to drive a skid loader. This is something you can't do anywhere else, and so. So I'd like to think that if the Google thing doesn't work out, I could probably get a job as in cargo. 3 months a year. Well, yeah, actually, if you do the early season in McMurdo, you can work it a little bit more. What was the frequency of flights? When the weather was good, we could get up to like 4 flights a day, but there were weeks that we just didn't get flights because of the weather, and then they'd all stack them in. Yeah, another question. Oh, right. Religion. There were chaplains that rotated through every. Would come down to do mass, or priests. Chaplains to do a service, maybe once a month or so. Other than that, we were sort of on our own. Yeah, Randy.
When you say flights couldn't get in, you're talking about during the winter, flights couldn't take back off. But could they parachute stuff in?
Yeah, so during the winter, in theory, they can airdrop stuff. Airdrop is something that is a really awful thing, it turns out. Later in the slideshow, if we, I don't think we got there. When you airdrop stuff, it ends up embedded about 6 feet into the ice, and you have to go out there and dig it out. And if it's minus 100 degrees, it's no fun. So airdrop is considered sort of the last resort. Let's see, okay, real play at the pole. Let me just, you imagine a lot of stress builds up doing this stuff, and when it's time to cut loose, people like cutting loose. And we have a lot of opportunities to do so on the weekends. So, things like Thanksgiving, Christmas, et cetera, are pretty well celebrated. Thanksgiving, the kitchen staff really goes all out. We've got, I forgot, what did we have for Thanksgiving? Well, for Thanksgiving, there was obviously turkey, but I think the beef Wellington and lobster that was Christmas, right? 4 different kinds of turkey. That was it. That was the big thing for Thanksgiving. So good meals, special meals, lots of music, so open mic nights. New Year's Eve, so you have 200, 250 people at the pole. New Year's Eve, we had 3 different bands. Pulleys love to dance. They went until New Year's Eve, or actually it was near Year's Eve, since it was. We celebrate holidays on the weekend, on a Saturday, so you get a 2-day weekend. So we celebrated on the 2nd, and they went until 3 a.m. The race around the world, that was another fun thing. That's Christmas Day. People familiar with Beta Breakers? Okay. Beta Breakers meets Burning Man. It's a 2.5-mile run around the compound, and it encompasses both the geographic and ceremonial pole. And people dress up. There are some serious runners, and people create mutant vehicles. And let's see what else is there. In January we have the South Pole International Film Festival, SPIF, where this year we had 7 entries of. If you come to me afterwards, I can point you to the SPIF films that are online. Some really good stuff. some starring members of the audience. Yes. And then suddenly it's February, and you go, whoa, it's time to go. Temperature's minus 40 again, and starting to see contrails, and it's time to pack up your Jamesway, get on the Herc, and head home. And you find yourself back here, and you go, whoa. And then everyone asks you one question. Would you do it again? Yeah. So, I need to answer Kat's question. Okay, excellent. We're going to do this by going to some history here. This is not old. The original pole station, 1957. The new dome, you can see there are these nice long metal arches and the dome and everything. And 15 years later, the dome is mostly under snow. Nice. And the arches are completely under snow and ice. What happens is, even though we don't get a lot of precipitation, all of this stuff blows in from everywhere else, and the surface pack raises by 8 inches per year. Old pole, the original pole station, is now 40 feet underneath. The dome, they got tired of trying to dig it out. Actually, here you can see it with the construction of the new station. Here's the dome in sort of this crater that they keep carving out. So the new station, they just put up on pylons, and the idea is that every 20 years or so, they jack the pylons up a bit more. Okay. Other questions? Oh, I realize I should go to the dory because I think we're nominally almost like out of time, but I should really do the dory thing. Come on. Dory questions for Pablo at the poll. Has anyone actually submitted them? No. Boo. Oh, wait, Carl has another question, though.
I'll just ask one.
Sure.
The personalities, you mentioned all the great people, right? Is there some kind of personality screen for people who
Yes, is there some kind of personality screen? Yeah, so a lot of it is, so for the winter rovers, you actually have to go through a psych test. And they ask you, do you want to spend winter at the pole? Say, yeah, you're crazy. No. No, but the summer, it's you have to go through a fairly extensive physical eval, and it's mostly personal interview. Because during the summer, if you turn out to be unworkable, they can send you home. But there is a personality that definitely works, and a lot of the hiring is not who can do the job the best. The criterion is who is not going to screw up, who's going to be perfectly adequate at the job, but I'll be able to deal with in close quarters for the next 3 months. And that's why so much of the hiring is kind of face-to-face in person. Yeah?
So apart from email, how did you keep in touch with your family? Could you do VC?
So how did we keep in touch? So there was email, and when the satellites were up, when the TDRS, the high-speed satellites were up, TDRS, the high-speed satellite, had about the bandwidth of a cable modem for the entire station. Then we would, you could actually, so we weren't allowed any video chat. That's just too much of a bandwidth hog. But you could actually make phone calls through. And in fact, my desk, when the satellites were up, I had a phone on my desk that rang through from a Denver area code. So people in the station or people from McMurdo or Denver could call me. Also, that meant wrong numbers could call me. And I was one number transposed from a funeral parlor in Las Vegas. And so I kept getting these phone calls saying, hi, is TJ there? I'm sorry, ma'am, this is not TJ's funeral parlor. Oh, come on. I know he's trying to avoid me, but just tell him that Brenda calls. You've not called TJ's. Well, who is this? You wouldn't believe me. TJ, tell TJ. You don't want to tell them that they've called the South Pole because either they're not going to believe you or they're going to believe you and they're going to tell their friends, hey, call this number and you're going to talk to the South Pole. Yeah.
Yeah, one of these jobs.
How would you get one of these jobs? We've gone over the... Okay, we've gone over the official time, so let me say thank you to those who want to bail out, and then I'll sort of pause for 15, 20 seconds so they can escape and then talk a little bit more about the jobs things. Okay? Thank you all.